and clipped Nelson's lead onto his collar. Outside on Henrietta Street, the air was rain-fresh, salted with the sea, and only the faintest whiff of smoke from the Kipper house next door. They hadn't lit the fires yet, but in a couple of hours' time, the whole street would smell like a damp sweater left outside on bonfire night. Liz tried to close the door, but the wood had swollen from the rain. She eventually had to resort to banging it shut, hoping with a wince that she hadn't woken any of her neighbours. The reverberation caused one of the screws on the house sign to tumble out, and the whole thing to swing on the single remaining screw. Liz ignored it. It was far from the only thing in Kipper Cottage that needed fixing. She turned left, as she always did, and headed for the Abbey steps. Her spirits rose as she strode down Henrietta Street, still slick with rain. With its whitewashed cottages, cobbles, and old-fashioned street lamps, it was easy to imagine she'd stepped back in time. A figure in a high-vis jacket appeared around the corner, breaking the spell. The red-cheeked fishmonger tugged his cart of fresh herrings towards her, headed for the smokehouse. "Morning, Mrs. McLuckie." "Morning, Mike. Lovely morning." "Now that bloody rain's stopped." Mike had a van, but knew better than to try to take it down Henrietta Street, because there was nowhere to turn around. The street ended, quite literally, in the sea. The cottages at the end of the terrace had been swept into the water by a landslide from the cliff a few years before. It was only a matter of time before Kipper Cottage went the same way. But it didn't worry Liz. She'd be long gone by then. "Watcha, Nelson?" Mike clicked his tongue at Nelson as he passed, but the dog didn't condescend to look at him. He was on a mission. Namely, to get up the Abbey steps as fast as possible so he could be off the lead. They soon reached the bottom of the steps. As always, Liz's soul shrank a little as she looked up at them. All 199, that wound their way up to the ruin of the once great Benedictine Abbey on the clifftop. They were wide and shallow, worn smooth by innumerable feet through the centuries. Churchgoers, pilgrims, holiday-makers and thrill-seekers hoping for a glimpse of the spooky ruins that had inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula. Liz started to climb. She always counted the steps on her way up, although it really wasn't necessary, as every 10th step was marked with a Roman numeral. She was careful to avoid the worn hollows in the steps, still puddled with rainwater. Halfway up, she paused to catch her breath on one of the wider coffin steps, so called because they allowed pallbearers to take a rest on their way up to the church. 18th century Whitby lay immediately below her, a jumble of cottages with red-tiled roofs. Opposite, about half a mile away, stood the grand Edwardian buildings of the West Cliff, painted cream and pastel colours. A stretch of pewter water lay in between, the harbour, where 3 fishing boats were currently moored. To the right of the harbour, a stone pier pointed crookedly out to sea. There was another pier too, curving round on the east side below her, but Liz wasn't able to see it from where she stood. The view was spectacular, unchanged for centuries, apart from a rash of satellite dishes and cross-hatching of phone lines. Nelson pulled on his lead. She took a deep breath of sea air and resumed her climb. A couple of minutes later they reached the top. In front of her, in the distance, stood the gaunt ruins of the Abbey church. Immediately to her left, on a mound just a few feet away, loomed the Celtic cross of St. Cadman, and beyond that squatted the parish church of St. Mary's. Liz took the left-hand path around the church. It skirted the 18th century churchyard, its gravestones leaning into each other like drunkards. It always gave her a little frisson of horror to think that some of the gravestones marked empty graves, memorials to occupants who had been lost at sea or in far-off lands. In spite of its spooky air, this was the place Nelson loved.